Now let's assign a material to the lamp base and attach it as an attribute instead of by level and color. In this case, the material assignment will only apply to the selected element, not all elements with the same level and color. Let's also make the lamp base a polished gold metal and create the material definition from scratch. So make sure that the table palette is highlighted. Don't worry about the negative sign over here. And we need a new material. So let's go up to here and click on New Material. New material shows up. And we're going to call this one Gold Metal Reflective. It's blue because it hasn't been saved yet. Now we can go across and make our own settings for this particular material. And we'll start with color. And we need a gold. So let's make this a fairly strong gold. We don't need a pattern since this is just a solid color. So since we haven't added a pattern, then the slider is not available to us and the value is not available either. We need a specular color for the highlights. Now, we could choose the same yellow, but we're better off probably choosing a much lighter yellow, even maybe towards a white, because specular highlights won't necessarily be exactly the same color as the main object. So let's use that. And specular, we need to bump up a little bit. So I'm going to change that to, let's say 62. That also bumps up the finish too, which is just fine. I'm going to change diffuse 2 while we're here, because this material will reflect quite a bit of light. Let's make that just 60. And let's do the same thing for reflect. This will reflect quite a bit of light. Let's leave it at 62 again. Now Fresnel automatically goes on at 62, but that's not particularly important in this case. And that's basically it. We could possibly add a clear coat, which is like a reflective varnish type of coating, but that really doesn't apply in this case. We don't need a bump because this is a smooth material. And glow is no use to us because we don't want the material to actually glow like a light, which is what the glow option does. So let's zoom in a little bit onto the lamp itself. Let's now apply this. So I'm going to go up to here. And this time we'll attach the material and just double check. We're in our Mod 15 3D table. We're on the table palette. And we've got the gold metal reflective. We don't want this one this time because we're going to directly select the lamp base. So I'm going to select the lamp base right now. There, that's selected. Data point. And it changes to yellow immediately. Let's see what's actually happened here. So I'm going to put a fence on that. And let's do a render. Let's see what happens there. Not too bad. We can see lots of reflections. We can see highlights. But notice that we get this strange looking polygon type effect. Now that's simply because we're using draft mode for render, which is a pretty basic low level mode. When we render in higher level, we'll see a nice round base. Now you might wonder why it looks so dull on the top, and that's because it is reflective, so it is reflecting the material for the shade. And if you look carefully, you can see the pole of the light standard going upwards into the light itself. So this is more a reflection than anything else. Notice too that we have this dark area around the outside. Well, that's the shadow that the point light is making as it sits above the lamp base on that 4-inch, 100mm high line, shining downwards on that sort of top base, which is creating the shadow. Curious effect, but it's perfectly correct. As always, feel free to tinker with the coloring here and the settings. See what changing colors slightly, see what changing the speculars and reflect does for the image you see here. In the meantime, we need to save this material. So I'm going to move that out the way. And we'll save. We now have a saved material, so that's just fine. Now I named this material Gold Metal Reflective, which is a sort of generic term, rather than calling it lamp base, because I want to use this again for other items that we'll be working with in later videos. So let me just add a couple of extra points here about the whole process, because by now you should be understanding pretty much how this works. First of all, you should be aware that material assignments can be removed from elements in the Attach Materials box. So for example, if I open up the box, right now we're on Attach Materials, which I just did, but you can also remove an attachment. Click on that and you can remove the attachment that we just made for the gold, for example. Now that works only on the element that you select. Whereas if you go to this, remove an assignment, which is what the shade is, we've assigned that to a level and a color. If you remove that, then you remove all of the materials on all of the elements with that level and color. And again, this may not be what you want. This is why an attachment is a little better, because it's a one-off sort of attachment and doesn't affect anything else. But it is much quicker to assign multiple elements with the same material with the Assign tool. We can also look at the Query tool here. And if you look at, say, the shade immediately pops into place on the Material Editor settings box. Let's do the same thing with the lamp. The gold metal reflective pops into place, all ready for editing. So as always, please experiment, and then next video we'll start looking at the bowl and the table.